I never imagined a lazy Wednesday trip to the mall would leave me breathless, backed into a corner, literally. It was supposed to be a break from the grind, a walk among food courts and discount signs to clear my head. But just minutes after stepping into the cool, over-perfumed air of the shopping center, I noticed something strange. A security guard, a towering, muscle-built man who looked like he'd served time in the military, kept showing up wherever I went. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Maybe he was doing a routine check, maybe I was being paranoid. But every time I shifted stores or changed direction, I caught that same presence in the corner of my eye. He was huge, easily 6'4", built like someone who spent his evenings lifting cars for fun and carried himself with that upright, no-nonsense posture that made it impossible not to notice him. I tried not to stare too long, but it was difficult. His uniform hugged his broad chest and the sleeves stretched over arms that looked carved from stone. His jaw was sharp, dusted with the kind of salt and pepper stubble that made him look even more rugged. But it wasn't just his looks, it was the way his eyes lingered on me, a strange kind of focus that felt intentional, like he was trying to read something just beneath my surface. When I ducked into a bookstore, he followed. When I left for the food court, he showed up again, leaning casually against a post like he just happened to be there. I paced near the pretzel stand pretending to scroll on my phone, heart racing like I was some teenager caught up in a fantasy I didn't understand. I wasn't used to feeling watched, but more than that, I wasn't used to enjoying it. Eventually, I turned down a quiet hallway near the restrooms, hoping to breathe, reset, and maybe put some distance between us. My palms were sweating, and I told myself this was insane. Still, I walked slowly, ears pricked for the sound of footsteps behind me, and they came. Heavy, deliberate, unhurried. I stopped, pretending to tie my shoe. He stopped too. I stood. He stepped forward. "Everything okay?" he asked, voice deep and rich like gravel softened by something warm. I looked up and finally met his eyes. They weren't cold or suspicious. They were curious, focused, and unless I was losing my mind, interested. "I think so," I said, trying to sound casual, failing miserably. His gaze dropped slightly, then met mine again. "You've been walking circles for half an hour," he said. "I figured either you were lost or waiting for someone." "Maybe both," I said before I could think twice. We stood there, the buzz of the mall muffled in that tucked-away hallway, surrounded by tile and silence and a tension that made the air thick. He didn't move. Neither did I. "Can I ask you something?" he said. I nodded, unsure what was coming next. "Are you actually planning to use the bathroom?" he asked, nodding toward the door behind me, "or just waiting to see if I'd follow you?" I couldn't help the smile that curled at the edge of my lips. "What if it's both?" He stepped closer. "Then maybe I'll make sure you get there safely." I pushed the door open. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. When it clicked shut behind us, the air shifted, charged, quiet, private. And nothing was routine anymore. The moment the bathroom door clicked shut behind him, everything else fell away, the distant mall noise, the buzzing fluorescent light, even my sense of logic. All I could focus on was the sound of his boots on the tile and the way he filled the room with his presence like gravity had just shifted. He stood by the door as if making sure no one else would follow, his arms folded across that broad chest and his eyes locked on me. I was at the sink, pretending to wash my hands, even though my hands weren't dirty and we both knew it. My pulse was hammering in my neck. I looked up at the mirror and found him watching me through the reflection, unblinking, focused. "You sure you're okay?" he asked again, voice low enough that it vibrated in my chest. I turned slowly to face him, drying my hands more than necessary with the paper towel. "You tell me," I said, my tone a little too bold for how fast my heart was beating. "You've been watching me since the food court." His lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "You noticed." I'd have to be blind not to. We stood there for a moment, for feet between us, maybe less. His gaze dropped to my chest, then back to my eyes. "It's not part of my job, you know? Following guys around the mall." "Then why do it?" He took one slow step forward. "Because you looked like you needed someone to." That caught me off guard. Not because it wasn't true, but because I hadn't expected to hear it out loud. I swallowed, my throat dry. "And now," he said, closing the space between us even more, "I'm trying to figure out if you're going to walk away or give me a reason to stay." He wasn't smiling. His face was serious. But his tone had changed, lower, softer, with something simmering just beneath the surface. I could smell his cologne now, something woodsy and clean, and it made my stomach flip in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. "I don't know what you're trying to do," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I haven't moved yet, have I?" His hand came up, slow, deliberate, and touched the side of my face. Just fingertips, warm and calloused, tracing the edge of my jaw. "You're not what I expected," he said. "Neither are you," I answered. His thumb brushed my cheek, and that was it. The last of my hesitation slipped away. I stepped closer, until the front of my chest almost touched his uniform. I could feel the heat of him, the tension between us tightening like a string that had been pulled too far for too long. And then he kissed me. It was slow at first, curious, testing. His lips were soft but firm, and he kissed like a man who knew what he was doing. Hey, thanks for watching until this point. Please leave a comment if you're enjoying the video. It really helps us grow the channel and reach more people. And hey, thank you very much. Let's get back to story. Like he'd been holding back and finally let himself dive in. I leaned into him, one hand braced against his chest, the other sliding around the back of his neck. He tasted like breath mints and quiet danger. His hands, God, those hands, curled around my hips, anchoring me in place. He pulled back just slightly, forehead touching mine. "Still want me to leave? Only if you take me with you." He let out a soft laugh, the sound vibrating against my skin. "We're not done here," he whispered, his voice low and rough, and the door stayed locked behind us. I had never kissed someone like that in a public bathroom, and yet somehow it felt less scandalous than inevitable. The second our lips met, it was like the last piece of a puzzle I didn't realize I'd been missing snapped into place. And now, with the door locked and the air between us thick with heat, I knew I wasn't walking out of there unchanged. His name was Matt. I asked in a half-whisper against his neck as he tugged me closer, and he answered with a low, deliberate "yeah," followed by my name repeated back to me as if he'd already memorized it. I hadn't even told him. He must have read it off my credit card earlier when I was paying for coffee. That did something to me. I wasn't used to being noticed like that, not in the way that made your skin flush under your clothes. I wasn't the type that usually got followed, approached, pulled aside with a look that said, "You're not going anywhere yet." But Matt made it feel like I was the only thing in the world he wanted to look at. And when you're a 39-year-old man with a closet full of insecurities, that's more powerful than anything you felt in your 20s. He pressed me gently against the tiled wall, one hand braced beside my head, the other splayed against the small of my back, holding me there like I might try to disappear. "I haven't done this before," I muttered, unsure if I was referring to the situation or the intensity of it. "Done what?" he asked, brushing his nose along the side of my jaw. "Let someone see me like this. Want someone this fast." He pulled back just far enough to look at me. "Then I won't move too fast, unless you ask me to." There was nothing performative about him. No arrogance, no power play, despite the badge and the uniform. His touch was careful, reverent almost, like he understood how fragile this could have been and didn't want to risk shattering it. But I wanted to be shattered. Just a little. I slid my hands beneath the hem of his shirt, fingers tracing over his ribs, feeling the tension in his body, the held-back want just beneath the surface. He let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it in for days, and when he kissed me again, deeper this time, I opened my mouth to him without a second thought. Everything about Matt was warm and solid. His mouth, his arms, his chest pressed up against mine, like he was trying to imprint this moment onto my body. I let my hands roam, and so did his, over my sides, my back, thumbs pressing lightly against my waist, pulling me closer as if he needed confirmation that I was really here and not just a figment of something he wished for on his long mall shifts. We didn't speak for a while. There were only sounds. His breath against my ear, the wet, muted press of lips on skin, the rustle of fabric being pulled and pushed and undone just enough to explore. There wasn't enough space for anything elaborate, but there was just enough to press ourselves close, to fumble through the hunger we'd both been carrying, even if we'd only just realized it. It wasn't sex, not exactly, but it was everything around it. Kissing, touching, holding, letting ourselves want. And in the tight, sterile space of that bathroom, with the occasional sound of mall-goers echoing just outside the door, It felt more intimate than anything I'd done behind closed bedroom doors. When it was over, when our breathing slowed and our foreheads touched and our hands stopped roaming like they were afraid of missing a moment, he pulled me against his chest and held me there for a beat longer than I expected. "I didn't follow you because I thought you were suspicious," he said quietly. "I followed you because you looked like you were waiting for someone to." I swallowed the knot in my throat. "I think I was." He stepped back slowly, helping me fix my shirt, smoothing down my hair like it was the most natural thing in the world to do. "We can talk outside," he said. "If you want this to be more than just this." And with that, he reached for the lock. The door clicked open with a quiet metallic snap, but it sounded louder in my ears, like a shift in the atmosphere, a change I couldn't undo. My chest was still rising a little too fast, and my hands felt warm from where they'd gripped his shoulders only moments before. We stepped out into the hallway like nothing had happened, but everything had. The mall hadn't changed. Kids were still darting between stores, music still drifted down from ceiling speakers, and the food court still smelled faintly of fryer oil and cinnamon. But for me, the world felt slightly tilted, like gravity had shifted just enough to keep me from walking the same way I did before. Matt walked a step behind me at first, then caught up and fell into stride beside me. He didn't say much, but I didn't mind. His presence was enough. Solid. Steady. "I get a break in 15, he said casually, glancing at the oversized clock mounted above a jewelry store. "There's a service door near the security office. Not glamorous, but it's quiet. If you wanted to talk." The word talk meant something different now. But I nodded anyway, unsure of what else to do with everything stirring inside me. "I'll be there," I said. 15 minutes. We parted ways with no fanfare. He turned left down a hallway labeled staff only, and I wandered toward a bench outside a candle store, pretending to scroll my phone while I counted the minutes by the rise and fall of my breath. I replayed the scene over and over, his voice, the way his fingers had trembled just slightly when they brushed mine, the softness in his eyes that didn't match his rough exterior. That contradiction did something to me. When I finally knocked on the service door, it opened instantly. He'd been waiting. The space beyond it wasn't much, a break room with a stained table, a coffee machine, and an old fridge humming loudly in the corner. But it was empty. And when the door clicked shut behind me, we were alone again. This time, we sat across from each other. A small square of table between us. No heat. No urgency. Just two men trying to understand what had just happened and what it meant now. "I didn't expect today to go like this," I said, finally breaking the silence. "Me neither," Matt replied. "But I'm not sorry it did." I looked at him, really looked at him. He wasn't just the pumped-up mall guard I'd imagined. There was something kind in his eyes, something worn down but still hopeful. His hands, resting on the table, were rough, a few calluses from whatever work he did outside of this. I liked those hands. I liked what they'd done, yes, but I also liked what they told me about the man in front of me. "I've never done anything like that before," I admitted. Matt's smile was gentle. "Same." That surprised me. "Really?" He shrugged. "I've had feelings. Moments. But nothing I acted on. Not until today." "What made today different?" His eyes met mine. "You." There was no smugness in his tone. Just quiet truth. My heart stuttered at that. We sat there for a while longer, trading small pieces of our lives. He told me he used to be in the military, left after a decade when the weight of expectations got too heavy. I told him about my marketing job, about the long commutes and lonely evenings that made shopping malls feel like a weird kind of escape. He nodded like he understood more than I'd said. Eventually, the room grew quiet again. Not heavy, just still. "I don't know what this is," I said, "but I want to see you again." "Outside of here?" Matt looked at me for a long moment, then reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded receipt, and scribbled something across the back. "My number," he said. "Use it." I took it from him, letting my fingers graze his as I did. "I will." The buzz of his radio crackled in the distance. His break was nearly up. He stood first, smoothing his shirt down and giving me that same steady look from earlier. "Next time," he said, "let's start with coffee." I smiled. "Deal." We left through different doors. But as I stepped back into the flow of shoppers and fluorescent lights, I felt something loosen in my chest. Something long held tight. Like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just a story that ended in a bathroom. It might have been the beginning of something else entirely. The next few days passed in a strange blur, like I was moving through routines with one part of me still stuck in that mall hallway. Still hearing his voice, still feeling the quiet charge of his presence close to mine. I went back to work. I sat in meetings. I nodded when I was supposed to, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Matt, the name alone stirred something. It wasn't just that we'd done something reckless and thrilling. It wasn't just the physical part. It was how real he'd felt in that staff room. How easy it had been to talk to him once the tension had softened and the adrenaline had settled. I stared at the receipt he'd written his number on more times than I'd like to admit. Folded it, unfolded it, thought about texting, thought about calling, wondered what I'd even say. I had no idea what he expected, or if he even expected anything at all. But eventually, the curiosity was too much. The not knowing gnawed at me, so I typed out a message. "Hey, it's me. From the bathroom. Remember? Bad way to start, but kind of hard to forget. I'd like to see you again. Coffee? Somewhere normal?" I hovered over send for a long minute, thumb twitching. Then I hit it, sat the phone down, walked away, forced myself to do the dishes just so I wouldn't keep staring at the screen. When it buzzed 5 minutes later, my heart nearly stopped. I remember, "Yeah, let's do coffee. I know a place. Thursday, 7 p.m.? I didn't even pretend to play it cool. "I'll be there." Thursday came and I was nervous in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not date nervous. This was different. Like I wasn't sure if it even was a date. Like I wasn't sure what either of us wanted from this. But I dressed like I cared. A fitted black sweater, jeans that actually fit right, and arrived 5 minutes early just so I could try to breathe before he got there. He arrived exactly on time. Seeing Matt in civilian clothes was a shift I didn't expect. He still looked imposing, broad shoulders, square jaw, that quiet command, but there was a softness to him now, in a gray hoodie and worn jeans. He looked like someone you'd pass on the street without knowing a thing about what he was capable of, or how good his touch could feel when he let go. We sat across from each other in a corner booth, the low hum of the cafe filling the silence between awkward first sips of coffee. "Didn't think you'd text," he said finally, breaking the tension with that same calm tone. "Didn't think you'd answer." He smiled. "Fair enough." We talked about work, about the weirdness of malls, about why he got into security after the military. "I needed something quiet," he said, and how he sometimes missed the intensity but not the rules. I told him about the burnout in my job, about how most days I felt like I was living the same loop over and over again. And somehow the topic drifted to relationships, to loneliness, to the way some nights feel heavier when you have no one to share them with. He looked at me then, really looked. "I don't know what this is," he said, echoing my own words from before. "But I don't want it to be just a one-time thing." I nodded. Me neither. Felt strange to say it aloud, but also right. We didn't touch. Not once. Not even a brush of fingers. But something between us had shifted again. From sparks to something steadier. Something worth exploring. As we stood outside the cafe afterward, the night cooler now, he hesitated for a second, then reached out, resting a hand gently on my arm. "I'll call you," he said, "not just text." I smiled, looking forward to it, and then, with a soft squeeze, he turned and walked away. I watched him go, realizing that for the first time in a long time, I wasn't replaying a goodbye. I was waiting for the next hello. I used to think that moments like the one we had in that mall bathroom were things you didn't talk about afterward, that they were just isolated flashes of intensity, sealed off from the rest of your life like a memory too bright to revisit. But with Matt, that moment turned into something else. Something that didn't fade the second we zipped up and walked away. Our coffee turned into dinner the next week. That dinner turned into a walk through a quiet park under a sky full of stars that neither of us mentioned but both of us watched. He wasn't a talker, not always, but I started to understand the way he listened. The way he let silence settle without needing to fill it. There was safety in it. In him. We never defined anything. Not at first. He'd call when he was off shift. I'd meet him halfway between his place and mine. Sometimes we'd just sit in his truck with the windows cracked, the heater humming between us. And other times, we wouldn't speak at all until we were in each other's arms. Breath quickening, hands exploring the same familiar places like it was all brand new again. What surprised me most wasn't the heat. It was the way tenderness found its way into every gesture. He'd cradle my face like he was memorizing it. He'd press kisses along my neck with a care that didn't match the way he could lift me like I weighed nothing. With Matt, the contrast wasn't intimidating. It was intoxicating. One night, weeks later, we found ourselves back in that same mall, only this time, we were just two guys walking beside each other. No stolen glances. No uniforms. Just me and him. We stopped at the railing overlooking the food court, watching the quiet bustle below. He leaned on the railing, arms crossed, a smile playing at his lips. "You know," he said, "I still on the people below. The first time I saw you, I thought he looks like he's holding something back." I looked at him, curious. "And now?" He turned his head slowly, meeting my gaze. "Now I think you're just starting to let go." The words settled deep, somewhere I hadn't let anyone touch in years. I stepped closer, our shoulders brushing. Maybe because someone made it safe to. That was when he reached for my hand. Right there, in the middle of the mall. It wasn't a big gesture. No audience. No drama. Just fingers threading through mine, warm and steady. We didn't talk about what would come next. Not in that moment. But I knew in my bones that it wasn't over. That whatever started with a locked door and a gaze that dared me to stay was only the beginning.